What's up, guys? I'm 16. I'm the new player on the basketball team, and I got a basketball game tomorrow. Welcome to Feedback Not Received. What is that sound? Do you hear that? Do you hear that sound? To me, it sounds like, it almost sounds like Danny Gonzalez trying to take a bite of Jenna Marble's nachos. Do you hear that? I think that's what's happening. For those out of the loop, Danny Gonzalez, YouTuber, Viner guy, released a video this week in which he said, "What's up, guys? I'm 16. I'm the new player on the basketball team. I'm really excited to play." High School Musical parody, basically, was what Danny posted this week. Jenna Marbles, whom I would call the patron saint of the OG YouTubers, famously said, "I've got a basketball game tomorrow," which she actually saw in a Vine of a small child saying that. But anyway, she popularized it. She made it famous. She made it her kind of little catchphrase. So yeah, is Danny Gonzalez trying to come for Jenna Marble's basketball nachos? Maybe. No, I'm just stirring up drama. Here's the thing. I'm saying things that will be entertaining. And do I actually think Danny Gonzalez is coming for Jenna Marble's nachos? No, I do not. Or at least only insofar as any online content creator might love to have some of Jenna Marble's nachos, in that she had an incredibly successful career and chose to retire when she felt the time was right. Oh, the phone. Sorry. Jenna Marble's She had an incredibly successful career and chose to retire at a time that she felt was right. And I'm confident if she chose to come back to YouTube today or tomorrow after her basketball game, I think she would have her following back immediately. Not that I think she actually is going to come back to YouTube, but I think any online content creator would love to have that plate of nachos, so to speak. At the same time, though, in my mind, Jenna Marbles just like owns the concept of basketball as a content creator. Like, I just don't, to me, it is so inherently a Jenna Marbles thing to say, "I have a basketball game tomorrow," that I don't think any other content creator can make a basketball joke without it being, in my mind, linked to Jenna Marbles. So in that sense, Danny Gonzalez is coming for Jenna Marbles nachos. Do the two memes really have anything to do with each other? No. As far as I understand it, Danny's video was a joke about Troy Bolton like aging out of being a teenage basketball player. And obviously Jenna Marbles was more like I don't even know how to explain it. If you know, you know. If you have a basketball game tomorrow, then you have a basketball game tomorrow. You know? It's the vibe of having a basketball game tomorrow. Of being Jenna, 32 years old, and you have a basketball game tomorrow, right? That's all. That's all I'm going to say about that. My hair is driving me crazy today, so sorry if I'm fiddling with it a lot, but whatever. Sorry, my hair was driving me insane, so I had to take it down. I want the millennial little hair bits that are out of the claw clip, but it simply was not working. It's not working. The haircut isn't working today, so we're just going to do the little tuck behind the ears. It's fine. Back to it. I'm done talking about Jenna Marbles and Danny Gonzalez, but also I will never be done talking about Jenna Marbles because I love her. And if she came back, I would be one of her fans for sure. Jenna Marbles could 100% pull a Dan and Phil. Who, well, Dan famously disappeared off the internet, and then they decided to come back, and now they're just vibing, doing their thing, playing Sims. And they have a huge audience again. Jenna Marbles could do the same thing. Not that I think she wants to, but anyway. Other stuff this week. Honestly, folks, I'm feeling not plugged in on the internet for the past couple weeks. You could say I'm feeling plugged out. I don't know what's going on. It's like I'm so in the internet culture and everything until I decide to do a weekly podcast about things that are happening on the internet, and suddenly I don't know what the fuck is going on. So like, I apologize for that. In personal news, my notes for this week are a bit of a mess, honestly. Let's start there. Through the week, as I see stuff that I think would be relevant or interesting to talk about on the pod, I write it down in my little notes app, and then I go back when I go to record, and I'm like, yes, let me talk about these things. My notes this week are confusing and somewhat incomprehensible. Now, this is the other problem. As I go, it's like, oh, I see the video. Oh, I'm gonna like it, and I will write it down in my notes so I have it liked, and then I have it in my notes so I can go back to refer to what I was writing in my notes, right? One of the notes that I've written for myself this week is TikTok clips with weird sound. What did I mean by that? Your guess is as good as mine. I definitely wrote it down for a reason, but I went through my TikTok likes and I don't have any video liked that is related to that. Yeah, no, I just looked at my likes and my favorites on TikTok and my favorite sounds. I don't know what the hell I was talking about when I wrote that. So that's fun. I love it. I'm not an organized person, if that's not been clear in the course of this podcast. I am not an organized person. But I've been trying really hard to actually write things down because I tend to do this thing where I'll be like, oh, that's something I want to remember for work or talk about on the pod later. But I'll definitely remember it. And then I don't remember when it's time to actually use the thing that I was going to try and remember. So I've been pretty good about that for this show of like writing things in my notes throughout the week, liking the TikToks, saving the videos, whatever. But yeah, sometimes I am the biggest villain in my own story, and I write things with zero context, assuming that my future self will have the context. I do not have the context, so past me, curse you. You have screwed us both. Anyway, another note that I wrote for myself this week is pig get slapped. I know what that's referring to. There's this TikTok account that has this like pig. Not a real pig, to be clear. I'm not going to talk about a real pig getting slapped because that would suck. They have like, it's like a stress ball pig, but it looks like it's filled with like clay or something. So when you squish it, it doesn't like bounce back. It like stays squished. And the whole account is them just like slapping this pig around. Now, I know why I wrote that down. It's because I think it's funny, but it's not really like a thing that happened. And I did write pig get slapped. That at least communicated what I was trying to say. I've also written down several things about TV shows this week. Interview with the Vampire Season 3 has apparently will start filming in Toronto in June, I think. That's exciting. It's exciting for me. I'm a fan of Interview with the Vampire. It's a good show. Nothing more on that, though. Severance finale. So I haven't watched Severance, but I see a lot of clips of it on TikTok. I thought that the finale was last week, but it might be this week. I didn't do any further research. I just wrote that down because I was like, Severance. People talk about that. Okay. I've written Daredevil Born Again. I'm a big fan of Daredevil. I really enjoyed the original series on Netflix. And I was very excited when Daredevil Born Again was announced because I liked the series and I'm glad they were bringing back all the characters. I haven't watched it. It's out now. Haven't watched it because I don't have a Disney Plus subscription and I haven't gotten around to pirating it. Sorry, I just had to clear my throat. Wheel of Time Season 3 is now airing. I knew Season 3 was coming up. I didn't realize it was out already, and apparently there's 3 episodes out now. Wheel of Time, another show that I really enjoy. I haven't actually read the books, even though they're sort of in the fantasy genre. They are in the fantasy genre, and that is a genre that I typically enjoy. Haven't read the books. Quite enjoyed the show, though. Am looking forward to watching Season 3. I don't have an Amazon Prime subscription, so going to have to pirate that as well, but I haven't gotten around to doing that either. Sorry, I have this like tickle in my throat. I don't know what. Anyway. So 4 big things on TV and movies, or no, TV specifically, but I, again, wrote these down because I was like, I don't know what to talk about. Shows? That's boring. I haven't seen any of these. So, good job past me. Oh, I've written German Edward Cullen in New York. Now, this one is kind of funny. There's this guy on TikTok who, well, I've written German. I think he might actually be Austrian. So I apologize in advance to the Austrian people or whichever country he's actually from. But he's this guy who really does look like Edward Cullen from Twilight. And the videos that I have seen of him, because I have seen him on my For You page before, is just him in the mountains. We'll say he's in Austria. In the Austrian mountains, cavorting, hiking, being ethereal in the mountains, looking like a vampire from Twilight, but he's like very like giggly, so he'll be like, oh guys, I'm lost in the mountains. And I'm like, oh no, Please be careful, Austrian or German or whatever, Edward Cullen. Anyway, he went to New York this past week, and I think he got interviewed maybe by like ABC or something. So now it's so weird. It's kind of weird because it's like, oh no, you as a character on the internet exist in the mountains, in the wilderness, cavorting and frolicking. You don't belong in the big city. You don't belong in the Big Apple. I'm so worried about you. Please be careful, German Edward Cullen. So it is funny. He's one of those characters who I just see ever so occasionally on my For You page, and I'm like, oh, there you are. Anyway, big news for German Edward Cullen stans, or Austrian, I apologize. But again, it's not like a super interesting thing to talk about. I've written Barbie movies on YouTube, so this was actually something I was excited to talk about. I saw this week on TikTok people saying Barbie's official YouTube account has uploaded a bunch of the Barbie movies, the old like animated ones, for free on YouTube. And I was like, sick, this is great. So much. It's a meaty one, a meaty topic to talk about. I went to look and it appears they have all been taken down. And whether or not they were actually on the official Barbie account is unclear to me, or if someone just uploaded a bunch of them. There are 2 Barbie Fairytopia movies, at least as of recording, still available on YouTube. So that's exciting. Those old animated Barbie movies, I do have a very high degree of nostalgia for. Like, they're just, and I'm talking about the old ones, like the pre-2010s maybe. So we're talking Fairytopia, we're talking Mermaidia, we're talking Princess and the Pauper, Swan Lake. I'm trying to think. That's like in that era of Barbie movies, when the animation was like janky as hell. That's where you get Bibble and Preminger, I think his name is. If you were on the internet, you will have known Bibble's like the little blue guy, and he's like, Bibble! And that's all he does. He's just the cute little animal side character who's just designed to sell toys of the cute little animal side character for the Barbie sets that the movies are advertising. And Preminger is the guy who did go viral. I think maybe it was Princess and the Pauper that he was in, but he's in the powder wig, and he's the one who, if you've heard it's a temporary setback, it's a momentary loss, that's him, that guy, who is voiced by Martin Short, weirdly enough. That era of Barbie movies, really, like, the animation is terrible, right? And the movies were just produced to sell toys, but the era of toys that they were selling as well is also incredibly nostalgic to me, because that's the era of Barbie toys that I was playing with. I remember very vividly getting the Barbie Swan Lake unicorn playset, the like carriage, Swan Lake carriage playset for Christmas one year, and that was like peak childhood experience for me. I've actually been on eBay like seeing if I can maybe get my hands on one of those playsets again, because it's nostalgia. So the toys themselves and the movies, like, I hold very dear to my heart. I was very excited to see that they were supposedly on YouTube. They are not. They are not, at least not easily available from an official source. I mean, again, one can find them. There's definitely a lot of them that have been uploaded in multiple parts, and a couple of the Fairytopia ones are apparently still there, but oh man, that would have been such juicy content. I don't know. Side note, if you know Ted Nivison, he did a video where he watched all of the Barbie animated movies in preparation for the Barbie movie from last summer. Time is last summer? 2 summers ago? I don't remember. That's a funny video if you want to. I was like, oh, I could just go through all the different Barbie movies and talk about them, but then I feel like that's not very original. Maybe I should do that. I'll pull up a list. Okay. Barbie and the Nutcracker, Barbie's Rapunzel, Barbie of Swan Lake, Barbie Princess and the Pauper, Barbie Fairytopia. These are the era that I'm talking about. Barbie and the Magic of Pegasus, the Barbie Diaries, Barbie Fairytopia Mermaidia, Barbie and the 12 Dancing Princesses, Barbie Fairytopia Magic of the Rainbow. I don't know, man. This is the thing. I don't know. I felt very energetic about filming today, but now I'm like, I don't know. None of the things that I was going to talk about are like interesting, I feel like. That's another, actually, talking about notes that I wrote for myself. Another note that I wrote for myself this week was, vibes are and screaming. What I meant by that is that for the past couple weeks, actually, I feel like the vibes have been rapidly oscillating between these two extremes of, like, I have written which like E-H-E-H-E, which is not like he, that's like meaning like I am cackling diabolically. I am looking at things that I like. I'm playing Love in Deep Space. I'm playing Infinity Nikki. I'm cackling diabolically in sort of that goblin-y way of like, I have shiny things that I'm playing with and I'm enjoying myself, right? That vibe. And screaming. And when I say screaming, you might picture just like, oh no, scream. No. And not screaming in a funny way either. Not like, screaming because it's fun. No. Imagine if I were to tell you the word chaos, whatever sound effect comes into your mind for the word chaos. For me, that would be like chimpanzees screaming, glass breaking, children crying, tires screeching, fire, I don't know, all of those sounds overlapped. Imagine just laying those sounds over one another. So it's just like a soundscape of absolute chaos, destruction, terribleness. That's what I mean by I say the vibes are screaming. So the vibes are rapidly oscillating between soundscape of chaos and goblin mode, shiny thing enjoyment, it's a bit of whiplash, admittedly. And I feel like I'm in this, maybe that's what it is the vibes have been absolute whiplash recently. And now that I'm like, right now, I'm not like either, I'm not screaming or ehehehing. And I'm just feeling kind of like, oh God. My makeup looks good though. I feel like I was looking for my eyelash curler, which I'm pretty sure I own, and I can't find it. I don't use an eyelash curler on a daily basis. I usually just wear mascara, like to work. But I'm pretty sure I do own an eyelash curler, and I couldn't find it. And I don't usually wear a lot of eyeshadow, but I'm pretty happy with how this turned out. Nobody please be mean to me about the way my eyeshadow looks. I'm also still trying to decide if I should do bottom mascara or not, because like sometimes it makes me feel like I look like a clown, but at the same time my eyelashes and my eyebrows are completely white blonde, so if I don't wear mascara and fill in my eyebrows, then I have absolutely nothing. So my lower lashes are basically invisible if I don't put something on them. Anyway, yeah, that's just the vibes, it's like, well, at least I look good. It's like that meme that's like, sorry for having great tits and correct opinions. Sorry about it, folks, because those things are both true. But I'm also tired. Like that cat. You know what? Another thing I've written down this week is echolalia episode. Echolalia, for anyone who doesn't know, is like the compulsion to repeat sounds or noises, which often comes with certain types of neurodivergence or OCD and things like that. And I recently learned echolalia. I was like, I don't have that. No, because I'm not like repeating sounds. It doesn't have to be external. So often in my brain, I'm just repeating certain sounds on repeat. So echolalia episode, why was I talking about that? Because I was going to say the vibes are like that one cat on TikTok. I don't know if you've seen it. They've been going, huh, huh, huh. That's how I feel. And the reason I wrote down echolalia episode was I was like, it would be very funny if I just did an entire episode just repeating all of the different Vine and TikTok sounds that are on repeat in my head at all times. Like, road work ahead. Yeah, I sure hope it does. Or like, look at all those chickens. Or like, what the ache? That's a deep cut, if anybody knows that one. Yep. I use what the ache a lot. What the heck? Oh, what is a good TikTok one? Oh, the Bo Burnham. That's how the world works. That's how the world works. Yeah, that one always. What was recently? Take it slow. Put it down on me. That's not a TikTok sound. That's like a real song, but it's been on a TikTok that I saw recently, so that's in my head. You are my dad. You're my dad. Boogie, woogie, woogie. Or like, haha, I do that. I realized I said Vine and TikTok. These are 90% Vine. I have an encyclopedic knowledge of old Vines. That was my shit, because that was when I was in high school. Was like Vine was at its peak when I was in high school, when like we just had smartphones. And it was so good. Hold on. I want to look up iconic Vines. Oh, Happy Christmas. Merry Christmas. Happy Chrysler. Free Shavakadu. Stop. I could have dropped my croissant. Chris, is that a weed? No. No, it's a crayon. I'm calling the police. And then she dials 911 on the microwave. What up? I'm Jared. I'm 19 and I never learned how to read. Hurricane Katrina? More like Hurricane Tortilla. Why the fuck you lie? Why you always lying? Look at this graph. I'm in my mum's car. Broom, broom. Get out me car. Oh. I said, whoever threw the paper, your mom's a hoe. When will you learn? When will you learn that your actions have consequences? I got the power of God and anime on my side. Adam. Or, oh my god, the hello. Okay, so this is another Jenna Marbles adjacent thing. Hello. So there's a Vine of a girl sleeping and her friend like pours water on her and she sits up. I assume she's drunk. She sits up and she just goes, hello. And then Jenna Marbles would do that all the time. She'd be like, hello. And then I started doing that all the time. But also Trixie Mattel does that, but she doesn't do the Jenna Marbles hello like from that Vine. Trixie Mattel does just, hello. Hello. Hi. Hello. And then I do that too, where I'm like, hello. But anyway. There was a couple of years ago, they were talking about making Vine 2.0. Bringing back Vine. I realize TikTok is kind of like that, but it's not the same. People use TikTok like their personal diary. The fact that Vine, and TikTok used to be more like this when it was only 15 seconds. Now you can make videos that are like fucking 10 minutes long. You can do literally a whole podcast just exclusively on TikTok. When people have a time limit, it brings out the creativity, you know? Brings out the sauce, I feel like. I miss it. Maybe this is just my, sad millennial episode of things I miss. Barbie movies on YouTube. Vine. Man, the vibes are bad today. What is going on? I had a productive morning too. I went to the grocery store. I made my lunch. I got all ready. Hey, speaking of depressed millennial stuff, they're remaking Lilo and Stitch as a live action. And the first trailer came out this week. Also, that was another thing that's on my list. And it looks fine. I'm not the live action remakes. I'm like, why are we doing this? Why are we doing this? It's never gonna be as good. And the whimsy, it's like people see animation as an inferior medium, but it's like, no. The whole point of these animated children's movies is that you need the animation as a medium to convey the whimsy and joy and fun that is a children's movie. When you try to make them all live action, it's just boring and lame and it's too real and whatever. And this is not a new take. Lots of people have said this before me. The one that pissed me off the most though was the Lion King, because they kept calling it live action Lion King when the entire movie consists of CGI animals. There are no human characters in the Lion King. How can it be live action? Because they weren't real lions, certainly. They were that one. I'm still mad, evidently still mad about that one. Lilo and Stitch, whatever, at least there's human characters. Stitch looks cute. His 3D little 3D animated Stitch is fine. Pleakley and Jumba are there. I was going to call him Gumbo. That's not his name. Pleakley and Jumba are there. However, they de-yassified Pleakley. Pleakley's whole thing was wearing his cunty little bob and walking around, and he was adorable. And now Pleakley's human disguise is a man. And unlike in the original Lilo and Stitch, where the joke was that Pleakley and Jumba were wearing bad human disguises, they were just aliens wearing Jumbo was wearing a Hawaiian shirt and some sunglasses, and Pleakley was wearing a cunty little bob and a dress, but otherwise had one eye, and they were obviously aliens. The whole joke was that nobody noticed that they were aliens in their shitty little disguises. Now they just have human actors, which I realize makes sense from like a budget standpoint. Obviously, it's way easier to be like, oh, here's the alien, and now ooh, they have their special fancy human disguise, and now we can pay a human actor instead of having to animate an alien. But this is why they shouldn't have done it in the first place. And at the very least, they could have had it be a woman actor. Why did it have to be a man? I think it's indicative of the times that we live in. Pleakley could have had a cunty little bob if it weren't for the current political climate. Now, there is the other angle to take as well of like, haha, male character in dress is like a transphobic punchline that dates back to fucking prehistory. But also, I don't think that's why they chose not to do that. I don't think they were like, it's transphobic to make a joke about the whole punchline of the joke being that the character is a man but is wearing a dress. That is transphobic. Perhaps we shouldn't do that. I don't think that was Disney's intention. I hate corporations, and I don't have faith that they would have made that decision out of like good faith, not wanting to be transphobic. Especially in this current political climate, I think they did it because they knew that if they had a male character wearing a dress, they would get canceled. I say canceled because obviously Disney's never going to get canceled. The movie's going to make bajillions of dollars regardless, even if they didn't pander to like right-wingers. But I think that's why they did it. I don't work for Disney. I don't know what they're doing, but I'm mad about it because they've robbed us of Pleakley and a cunty little Bob. We were robbed. Sorry. I'm not fun today, guys. I'm not fun today. I need to maybe I need to take a nap and then I'll calm down. That I'm not excited about the Lilo and Stitch live action. Again, it's like they take all the whimsy out of it. It's just boring. Ugh. I've also written here bloodworm moon. Yeah. So there was a lunar eclipse this week. Total lunar eclipse, which is kind of cool. Makes it a blood moon. Turns the moon red. It's something to do with the time of year and like the fact that the eclipse was happening when it would have been sunset somewhere else, and so the color of the rays of the sun that are reflected past Earth onto the moon were more orange tinted, so it turns the moon like an orangey red, and that's why it's a blood moon instead of just like a regular lunar eclipse. But it was a bloodworm moon. At least that's what the local news was calling it here. And this actually, I have beef about this, okay? I think like we had like a super moon like 5 years ago or whatever. I don't know, time is meaningless to me. And I think the news realized that like, oh, supermoon, people were super interested in the supermoon. And if they talked about the supermoon, they could get a lot of clicks. And now I feel like every 2 weeks, it's like, oh, we've got a blue harvest extra large moon. Oh, we've got a super duper moon. We've got a double ultra moon. We've got a bloodworm moon. We've got a dragon. We've got a Game of Thrones Dracarys moon. We've got a tiny moon. We've got an ultra small moon. We've got a moon. I don't know. It just feels like they're making shit up at this point. The explanation that I saw for why it's a bloodworm moon is because the worm moon is a name given to the moon at this time of year by one of the local indigenous nations around here. Okay, fair, because cultures all across the world tend to use the cycles of the moon to kind of mark the time of year, right? The explanation that I saw was like the worm moon is because at this time of year you would start to see worms coming up from the ground. All right, fine. But I'm 90% sure the news didn't call it the bloodworm moon because they were like, oh, what an interesting factoid of like our local indigenous culture. No. They wanted to call it the bloodworm moon so that people would be like, bloodworm? Ew, what's that? And then click on their fucking articles. And that's what happened. So it was actually a blood moon because that's a thing. It was a lunar eclipse that turned red. Looked very cool. I saw pictures because I was not staying up until the fucking middle of the night to see the moon. I wasn't going to do it, but I did look at pictures and it did look cool. Clickbait moon. That's the next one. You You heard it here first, folks. The next moon is the clickbait moon. We've got a clickbait moon coming up, folks. Next full moon is a clickbait moon. Don't ask me what that means. This is what I mean. The vibes are bad today. Why am I so mad? Why am I so mad? What is happening to me today? Oh, last weekend also, I completely lost my voice. I got sick on Sunday, and I've fully lost my voice for no reason. The only other time I've ever lost my voice in my life was when I was at a party one time, and I spent several hours like screaming, and I lost my voice from like strain. This was not that. My voice was not strained. I actually was sick, but like one of the only symptoms was that I lost my voice. It's so stupid. Talk about going through it. Let me look at my notes again. Oh yeah, I've written down Diva Queen of Angmar. This is actually a fun thing. Someone on TikTok has bedazzled a Nazgul mask. So Nazgul from Lord of the Rings, the scary guys on their black horses that go, like, they scream, and they've just got these big spiky helmets. Specifically, the Witch King of Angmar is the leader of the Nazgul, and so this girl has turned her Witch King of Angmar mask into what is essentially a disco ball. Like, she has, I say bedazzled, but she actually has glued like the little like disco ball mirror squares all over the entire mask. Looks fantastic. And so people were calling her the Diva Queen of Angmar. And she said, "No man can slay me," because she's slaying. That's a joke that in Lord of the Rings movies, if you don't know, no man will be able to slay the Witch King of Angmar. And then Eowyn comes up and she's like, "I am no man," and she kills him because she's a woman, not a man, and a woman can kill the Witch King. But now she's like, "No man can slay me," because like she's bedazzled. So that's fun. That's a nice thing. That's a good vibes thing. Yay, we made it. We got there. We got to the good vibes. Cool. Another thing I've written down is McCain's Deep and Delicious. So if you're not aware, McCain's is a company. They make Deep and Delicious, which is a frozen dessert. It's like a chocolate, pretty sure the original is like chocolate cake, and then it's topped with like whipped topping. I can't explain it. It's a Canadian thing. But in this whole political climate, I have seen people touting the McCain's Deep and Delicious as like, "I'm supporting Canada, so I'm eating a McCain's Deep and Delicious." And then I saw some like guy, European guy, who was like, "Oh, the Canadians, they've convinced me to try the McCain's Deep and Delicious. I'm only gonna have one bite. Oh no, I ate the whole thing." And like that is a true Canadian experience of like buying an entire McCain's Deep and Delicious and just housing the whole thing, absolutely going to town on a McCain's Deep and Delicious. Like, you are overtaken by the spirit of your ancestors who had no sugar or salt because they were peasants, and they're like, "Hell yes, eat this entire thing before the king comes and takes it away and beheads you." So I appreciate that. We're spreading that aspect of Canadian culture to other cultures. Everyone should be eating the McCain's Deep and Delicious. Again, I hate corporations, but hey, at least they're a Canadian corporation. My cat's outside. He doesn't like it when I close the door. Too bad. Otherwise, he'd be up on the desk. He'd be interfering in the podcast. I should use use my cat for views. I should get him on here because he's cute. I don't want to. He's too disruptive. He's very, very clingy, my boy. Very clingy. I've had him since he was a baby, and I'm his... You know what? No. I was going to say I'm his mom. I hate that. I'm not his mom. If you consider yourself a pet parent, that's fine. I'm not my cat's mom, but he is my son. If that makes sense. If it doesn't make sense, too bad. It makes sense in my soul. He's my son, but I'm not his mom. I don't know. I did raise him from a baby, which does mean that he's very, very clingy. So apologies if you can hear him meowing back there. The mic shouldn't pick it up, but somehow it does. Anyway. What was I talking about? McCain's Deep and Delicious. Hell yes. Oh yeah, Canadian corporations are evil. But at least they're Canadian. Ha ha ha. We were all boycotting Loblaws for a while because they're fucking over all of Canada with their grocery prices and terrible business practices. But now we're all like, well, I guess if I have to shop somewhere, it's better to shop at a Canadian corporation rather than an American one. Ha. Anyway. I mentioned Preminger earlier, who was voiced by Martin Short. I'm going to circle back to that and use it as a, what's the term? Segue. We're segueing from Preminger, who I mentioned like 20 minutes ago or something, to Martin Short. Why? Martin Short is dating Meryl Streep. It was confirmed this week. This is actually something that I am excited about. Now, I'm not like super into celebrity gossip, and generally it wouldn't be something that I would cover on this show, but I am happy about this. So Meryl Streep, Martin... Meryl Streep and Martin Short both were on Only Murders in the Building. Martin Short stars in Only Murders on the Building. Only Murders in the Building star Martin Short. Folks, what is happening to my brain? There's no reason for this. Martin Short stars in Only Murders in the Building. Meryl Streep was on Only Murders in the Building two seasons ago and last season. She was in season 3 and season 4. And she is a love interest to Martin Short's character. They are actually officially together. I think they got married at the end of season 4. Spoilers, I guess. And their chemistry is fantastic on the show. And I mean, I love Meryl Streep, and Martin Short's a funny guy. And there have been rumors that they may have sparked an actual real life romance working together on Only Murders in the Building. There have been rumors for like over a year at this point. It's finally confirmed, mostly, or it's confirmed in the tabloids, but I think it's like at this point pretty reliably confirmed that they are actually dating, and I just like that. I'm just happy for them. Like, it's sort of one of those things where, like, particularly for older people, there's a perception that, like, oh, you don't need, like, romance, or, like, you should be happily married by then, and, you know, they've both been through some stuff in their love lives, and I think they deserve to be happy, and I'm glad they're happy. And they did, their chemistry on Only Murders in the Building is pretty off the charts. And so I'm like, yeah, I'm glad that translates to real world chemistry for them. Because they do make a very handsome couple, so to speak. They look good together. They seem happy. I'm happy for them. That's a piece of good news. Transitioning away from that, this is not bad or good, but I saw someone on TikTok talking about dark whimsy maxing and how we should be doing that. And I love this term. So he was making a joke. He was like, you ought to be dark whimsy maxing. And he was like behind a series of like office buildings, like behind a strip mall. And he was like, where else would you like, it was the vibes were dark whimsy maxing. If you don't know, maxing would just be like doing the most, basically. So if your looks maxing, you're like doing the most to make sure you're like perfectly beautiful or whatever. Whimsy maxing would be like doing the most to be whimsical in your life. Oh my god, my cat. Dark whimsy maxing is a term I have as yet not heard until this TikTok. But dark whimsy, what do we mean by dark whimsy? Now, this guy's interpretation of dark whimsy was random plastic skeleton hanging behind a strip mall with like weird lighting because it's nighttime. It's just like the floodlights from the mall. I don't know if that's my definition of dark whimsy. I was trying to brainstorm what dark whimsy maxing. What would I do if I was dark whimsy maxing? Maybe this is dark whimsy maxing. Hosting a podcast by yourself for no reason that nobody watches, just because I love to yap. And my cat is howling behind me. Maybe this podcast is very dark whimsy. That's not true at all. Dark whimsy maxing would be, I don't know. I was going to brainstorm things for this, but I can't think of anything, so sorry, folks. I do, however, this is not going to be a very long episode. I've accepted that. This is the 4th episode of the podcast. Whoop, whoop, celebrate. That means 4 weeks in a row that I've sat down and recorded 40 minutes to an hour, edited it and uploaded it to YouTube, and edited the TikTok clips and posted on TikTok consistently too. I'm proud of myself for that. Was kind of part of the reason I started doing this was as sort of a challenge to myself of like sticking with something on a regular basis. And I'm glad that I have. Let's celebrate that. 4 weeks doesn't seem like a lot, but it's 4 weeks of consistently working at something that I enjoy. And I'm happy about that. And I was thinking, as I continue, I tried to start this without trying to be perfectionist about it. I don't have the best setup. I don't have the best camera. I don't have a great background. But then hopefully, if I keep doing it, I'll upgrade some stuff. And I was like, yeah, I have visions for what the quote unquote set might look like. Sorry about the cat. But then I was thinking, so the mic, right? This is not the best quality mic, but it's a pretty decent mic. Right now it's just plugged in with USB, but it does have capability to be plugged into an actual audio mixer. So obviously maybe upgrading the quality of the mic at some point, or just getting better at sound engineering in general, because I'm not a professional, I'm not trained in this. But I was like, theoretically having a boom arm or a swivel arm for the microphone would make things easier and more stable, and I could just have it in one position and I wouldn't have to worry about, my hands making noise on the mic. But then I was like, I like holding the microphone. It feels very mother to be holding the microphone, not just speaking into the microphone. Yes, I am speaking. I have the microphone in my hand. I'm speaking to you. I like holding the microphone. So realistically, in an actual setup, it would probably be better to have a boom arm for the mic and just not be holding it. And maybe I'll change my mind and my arm will get tired. But right now, feels very girl boss to be holding the microphone, I'm live, I'm on scene, I'm reporting the important internet news to you, my audience. I like the vibe of it. What I was also thinking about is fame and celebrity, kind of. Obviously, my podcast is not famous. Obviously. But I think we all occasionally spend time imagining, what if I did get famous? What if the podcast blows up? What then, right? And I was thinking about what I like and don't like about very well-known podcasts that I do follow or that I have followed in the past. And one thing that I have come to the conclusion of is that airplane stories and airport stories are the podcast killer. In my opinion, there is nothing more boring than listening to a bunch of rich influencers or internet celebrities talk about airports. And I think it's something that happens when your whole job is podcasting or being an internet personality, and you spend a lot of time, you have the privilege to spend a lot of time traveling to events for work, or because you have disposable income traveling for vacation, right? More power to you. I am not at all saying that people shouldn't do things they enjoy or travel for work, but I think a lot of folks, when they start as people working regular jobs and doing this as their side gig, and then they just blow up and it becomes their full-time job. You have a lot more interesting stories to tell when you're working a regular job and interacting with real people and on a regular basis, and not just interacting with other internet personalities and people for collabs, right? And when the places that you travel to are places that you're traveling not for events, but for travel experiences, And I think people forget that. And then when you start out, you have a lot more interesting things to talk about. When you become a full-time internet personality, I think because it's understandable, right? If you're getting people coming up to you in public all the time, maybe you don't want to go out to regular people places in general, but you still should, because if you don't do that and you only spend all your time hanging out with other influencers and internet celebrities and spend your time traveling either for luxurious trips or for events, that's not relatable and interesting to your audience. I'd much rather hear someone, because a lot of people probably say, oh, the airport stories are weird things that happen at the airport, weird people on the airplane. Okay. I'd much rather hear about a weird person you met at the grocery store or a funny encounter you had with a stranger at a cafe than to hear about a mildly entertaining thing that happened to you at an airport, because it simply is more relatable. Most people don't fly that often. and it can become very out of touch. It's like, anyway, if I ever get to the point where this podcast blows up, where it's my full-time job, you need to hold me accountable. If I spend significant time talking about airports and airplanes on my podcast ever without like a good reason to, without like, if it was like I was survived a plane crash or something, that's a valid reason to talk about an airplane, right? If I just start, if my content becomes talking about traveling to places to do influencer things, you need to call the RCMP, you need to call the Coast Guard, you need to call the government, you need to call CSIS, because something is wrong, because I will have, that means that I have like left this normal person plane of existence, and I don't want that. Anyway, this isn't a call out to any particular podcast. And like, obviously there's a lot of podcasts that I like that do this, but like, I'll still watch them, podcasts or YouTubers or whatever. But it's like, I just think people forget that like, you are entertaining, but you have to do interesting stuff in order to continue to be entertaining, right? Or have interesting opinions or something. And like, maybe I don't do a ton of interesting stuff, but at least I have opinions. At least I'm not just talking about airports all the time. Because who cares, right? Like, I realized, I think in my first episode I did talk about the airport, but I talked about how much I fucking hate the airport. How I don't like flying. So anyway. Call out to all the podcasters who have forgotten that they are in fact human beings. And that their fans do not spend 90% of their time in airports unlike them. Man, that feels mean. Am I being mean today? Am I gonna get into beef? That would be very funny. Can you imagine if I post like a clip on TikTok or something, or somebody sees this, like tag a podcaster, they're like, hey, at this person, you do this, and then that starts beef with someone. That'd be great for me. No, it wouldn't. I don't want to start beef with anybody. I'd love to not be in internet drama. It would probably help me blow up. But, you know, I'm not trying to start shit with anybody, and, like, I'm not trying to be mean. Don't kill me. I'm just saying I think it's boring if all you talk about is airports and airplanes and flying and influencer stuff and not, like, actually interesting things. Reading Reddit posts is also on thin ice. I understand why people do that, because obviously it's, like, they can be pretty wild. Most of it's fake anyway. But reading Reddit posts, if your whole thing is just reading Reddit posts and like kind of reacting to them, you're on thin ice too, because get better content. Wow, I'm getting spicy. Maybe I am starting beef. Maybe I'm just accidentally going to war with like half of the people who do podcasts, but whatever. Anyway, folks, my main goal is to blow up and then act like I don't know nobody. Who was that? Was that Riff Raff? That's also from a Vine, if you don't know what I'm talking about. Might have been Riff Raff. One other thing I wrote down was Parmesan wheel. Parmesan wheel. Why did I write down Parmesan wheel? I actually know why. Because there's a woman on TikTok who bought herself an entire wheel of Parmigiano Reggiano, which would be expensive. Like, those wheels, it's like a two foot, like, what is it, diameter? It's like a giant wheel. It's like as big as your torso wheel of Parmesan cheese. They are expensive. And I love that for her. She was like, I bought this because I wanted to, basically. And she made the pasta where you like cut open the cheese and you like carve out the hollow in the middle and you put the hot pasta in the Parmesan and it like coats it because it like melts. My mouth is watering. She did that. Good for her. I would love to buy an entire wheel of Parmesan cheese. Big Parmigiano Reggiano, if you want to sponsor me, I will take a wheel of Parmesan cheese as payment. Thank you. I have heard, though, I've seen some people trying to do that in the past, and like cheesemongers sometimes will just like not sell you the entire wheel if you're not like a restaurant, because they're like, what are you going to do with this entire wheel of Parmesan cheese? You're going to waste it. You're going to destroy it. Like, cheesemongers take their shit seriously, and you know what? Respect to them. That's like an ancient profession right there. And I could see them being like, oh, you fucking loser. What are you going to do with an entire wheel of Parmesan cheese? You don't respect it. You don't respect the cheese enough to be allowed to purchase this. You have to earn the right and privilege to purchase an entire wheel of Parmesan cheese or other cheeses. This woman on TikTok did not have that problem as far as I know. I haven't actually watched her Parmesan saga in its entirety. But good for her. I think we should all aspire to that. To just like buy an entire cheese wheel because you want to. Anyway, folks, that's this week, I guess. I'm sorry. I don't know what is going on with me. It's like, I don't know. It's been raining all morning. Maybe that's what's wrong with me. Anyway, I'm sure there's stuff this week for sure. I say this every week, but for sure this week there's stuff that I missed. Because like I said, I'm feeling kind of plugged out of the internet right now for whatever reason. There's definitely stuff I missed. Or, well, and also if I pissed off any podcasters just now, sorry about that. But, as always, it's my show, and I'm with the... Yeah. It's my show, and I'm the one with the microphone. So whatever I didn't talk about, too freaking bad. You can go get your own show and your own microphone and talk about whatever you want to talk about. Thanks for listening. Bye.